Hey, everybody. Welcome to the NerdCast. One last time. We're going to do this. Um, I'm here, Mark Etheridge. I'm here with Kendall Rogers and Fitt. We're going to go through, we're going to react to the host sites that were just announced. We're going to find the field of 64, go through the automatics are chosen for us, so we don't have to do that. But we do need to go through and pick, decide who's on the bubble, who's going to be really sad, and who's going to be happy as we head into selection day on tomorrow. So, guys, I'll kick it to you first. Just initial reactions to the host announcements.
I'll go real quick. For me, I think the committee made the right decision on Arizona. For years, all three of us sit there and like we use RPI as a guiding light, and typically the committee just goes by RPI. But I actually like the fact in this case that they went away from RPI a little bit. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, you know what? The quads don't look great for Arizona, but when you look at Arizona's body of work, they won the Pac-12 regular season championship. They won the conference championship. And we always talk about in the Nerdcast that you like if you're not going to have a great RPI, like what's something that you can have that can offset that? Winning both championships offsets
yeah,
that. So now the challenge for me moving forward to your committee is Arizona's hosting. You kind of looked away from the RPI. Now my hope with the committee is that we don't just look at all that large teams and go RPI, RPI, RPI. Like let's see tomorrow morning now if we think outside the box once again. I'm not as confident on that one.
Yeah, I
yeah,
hear you, and it's it's the kind of the same old same old. There's it feels like there's a moving target. They emphasize RPI when they feel like it. They pick non-conference strength of schedule and just when they feel like it, conference record when they feel like it, and you just kind of never know. And that's why I was so surprised um, by. I was pleasantly surprised by Arizona hosting, and I get it. Like I'm not even gonna. I've had to turn off Twitter because it's just like people are angry out there. I'm not
hmm
surprised the Mississippi State fans are angry. Of course they are. And look, if you look at the Q1 record, I mean, why wouldn't you be angry? I mean, 16-14 against Q1 is loud. I mean, Mississippi State's body work is loud. All those SEC wins, I get it. Five Q1 losses really just torpedoed their case, but even so, we still. I mean, as of this morning, we still thought they would host. And if you just look at the Q1 records, 16-14 for Mississippi State versus, um, was it 3-9 versus Arizona? That doesn't look great. That
yeah,
said, I mean, listen, the West does get more leeway in the RPI. It should get more leeway in the RPI. Nonetheless, the SEC is probably going to get 11 teams in. Like they're going to, SEC is all the advantages. They're going to get tons of hosts, tons of teams, like every now and then they might lose one. Unbelievable, like upset city. They lost
yeah.
this one to the Pac-12 regular season and tournament champion, a team that had the number one non-conference strength of schedule in the country. And yeah, they struggled early, but you know what? They found it.
Yeah.
And I think they deserve to host. But my quibble, I guess, well, I guess I'll put it this way. Another surprise I had, Mark, and I'll kick this one to you because I think you got thoughts on this. But East
Yeah.
Carolina hosting over Duke and Indiana State. But I certainly think
Right.
that I thought Duke earned it. And just with what they did, they had a glaring weakness, which was number 214 non-conference strength of schedule. Glaring weakness. And they overcame that by going 20-14 aggregate in the ACC and climbing to 16 in the RPI. I mean, if you climb to 16 in the RPI, that non-conference strength schedule is baked in. That's pretty good. If you can get to the 16 with that non-conference strength schedule, that means you won a lot and you beat a lot of good teams, which they did. And winning the ACC tournament, I thought should have carried more weight. That said, I mean, a third host in the triangle, and a team that doesn't have great facilities. That's just that's probably a factor of all things are equal.
hmm
That part's not surprising. I'm surprised by Indiana State having basically the same resume as ECU, but being 12 spots higher in the RPI. A top 10
Yeah.
RPI team that won its regular season championship and a league rated one spot better than the American, by the way. They both won the regular season championship. Both did not win the conference tournament. Similar quads and such. Indiana State's 12 spots higher. Like that, that kind of seemed like an easy call, except for they didn't have a man on the committee this year like they did last year.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I mean, that's the one that really stands out to me. Indiana State getting left out for East Carolina because they're in kind of a similar spot. Conferences are relatively similar. MV Missouri Valley's a little bit better this year, but um, RPI is better. A lot of the metrics seem to be better. Traditionally, we would look at the RPI, and that would carry the day. So that it's going to be interesting to see. Was this just a one-off? May you know? East Carolina's RPI plummeted during the week. It was almost like they had decided before all of this, all this free fall happened, and they just stayed with it. And maybe you're right. Maybe that's because they have representation in the room. But that's the part that really stands out to me is if East Carolina is a host at a 23 and winning the 12th rated conference, that's never been done before. That's not a traditional host resume.
Right.
So if that happens, heck, what's going to happen tomorrow?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so it does kind of open up some, if you're in our shoes and you're trying to guess what's going on, that's pretty challenging, right? As we go into this building the bracket.
Yeah, no doubt. And oops, Kendall's muted. Sorry. Go ahead, Kendall.
Sorry about that. I thought somebody made an interesting comment on Twitter today to me, among other interesting comments, mainly blaming me for all this. I thought it was interesting that
if the shoe fits.
I thought it was interesting that somebody made the comment that like it's almost like the committee went old school here and like kind of divvied up the bids a little bit to kind of spread it around by giving one to the West, you give one to ECU to kind of get those, get away from the other two power conference teams in the triangle. Mississippi State didn't get one. I thought that was an interesting comment because it almost did seem like they were intentionally kind of wanting to move things around a little bit.
Perhaps, and I don't know. I mean,
although Indiana State didn't host.
Yeah, that's true. And for me, it feels more like it just boils down to committee politics. I mean, the Pac-12 representative probably made a strong push for Arizona.
Yeah.
And again, I don't think that's undeserved. Mark's point though about East Carolina, just the historic precedent there is doesn't exist, right? I mean, for a team that wins a league like that in the 20s to host and didn't even win their conference tournament.
Yeah.
And listen, like you can say, hey, well, they weren't healthy down the stretch. That's why they lost. They had a bad kind of a uneven finish. Let's call it. I mean, they got swept at Tulane and then they, had to battle and they fought in the conference tournament, but they didn't win it. But like, sure, that's an excuse. It's a reason, but like that shouldn't benefit them. I mean, they're heading into the postseason and their health is a big question mark. And usually like you would get dinged for that.
Yeah,
you wouldn't
that's
get
a
rewarded
negative
for that.
Right.
Yeah. So I just found that surprising. That's all. And again, it's not that I think East Carolina is some egregious host pick. We've had them hosting in every projection this year until this morning. Like, and then, but once their RPI dropped, like usually that's all she wrote. Like, sorry, that's just kind of how that works. But when you're a team with that profile, it's a little bit different. If you're in a powered conference, maybe, and you have all those quad one wins like Mississippi State, or if you're in the Pac-12 and you win both regular season, you got other things going for you. But ECU, it just didn't quite feel like they had enough to overcome that RPI, but they had a man on the inside. And I'm not saying it's some conspiracy. It's just the way the damn thing works every year. We talk about it every year. I mean, you wait and see who gets in tomorrow. I got a hunch now, I mean, it's just the way the damn process works, and it's a BS process because of it. I mean, we shouldn't have people in the room who have a vested interest in the outcome. Like that,
right.
We could do better than this. It's absurd. Sorry, I'm not even that upset about the ECU thing. It's just I'm upset about the process.
The process
is broken.
I'm with you, man. I mean, it puts these people in a difficult position because obviously you look across college athletics right now, and everyone's looking out for their own best interest. Right? No one's looking out for the greater good. So how are you going to put people with vested interest in the process and expect a different result? Because all we've seen is, this program or this university is going to this other conference because it benefits them, right? No one's looking out for the greater good, and that's a really difficult ask for committee to be. Oh, I'm this way 90% of the time, and now I'm going to be impartial, and I'm going to go through and forget about it and be altruistic and decide what's best for the greater good of the game. That's really challenging to just change your entire personality and your job function for 1 week a year, because that's really what we're talking about. So
exactly.
I think the process is broken, and I have thoughts. So, and we'll put those together, over the next, I don't know, short period of time. And how do we fix this? Because I don't like it. I mean, I honestly don't. I mean, I love college baseball probably more than is healthy, but this is not a good look for our sport. And it's we to your point, Aaron, we can do better than this. At least the illusion of better than this, because even if nothing goes wrong, it'll really looks bad, right? So
Exactly.
so that's the part that I think can improve.
Anything
So
else to add, Kendall, or should we move into the
Go
the
for
actual
it.
nerdcasting section of the show?
you good? So I think the number one team,
Uh,
and Kendall, I'm presenting if you want to pop this up,
Yeah, let's go.
is the Tennessee Vols. Okay, so let me make this a little bit bigger here.
Yep.
Yes, hope that works. Yeah, that'll work. Anybody got any reservations about making the Vols number
No.
one seed?
SEC
Okay.
regular season co-champ, SEC tournament champ. Pretty easy decision.
50
Yep,
and 11, 21 and 9 Q1. I mean, the metrics across the board are just
and
overwhelming.
based on the Arizona decision today, I'm certainly even more bullish on this. So
Yep.
number two for me is Kentucky. Any
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that too, Mark. All
Okay.
those Q1 wins, 22 and 9 Q1, SEC
Okay.
co-champs. Agreed.
So the next team for me would be North Carolina,
Yep.
if I can grab it.
I would agree with that.
Kendall, you good? So
Yep,
and then after
I'm
that,
good.
I've got A&M.
Yep.
Okay. After that,
And those, by the way, are the top
Arkansas.
four. Those are the
Yep.
top four teams in the RPI, by the way. Tennessee, A&M, Kentucky, North Carolina, and Arkansas. That's the order for RPI. So it's pretty
Right.
close to that.
Right. So the next would be Arkansas or Clemson in some order. So
I
where do
like.
you guys come down on that?
I think I lean Arkansas. I'm not.
I lean
Yeah,
Arkansas.
yeah, Arkansas. I would say Arkansas, then Clemson.
I'm not going to argue with that. That works for me. So that's your top six: Tennessee, Kentucky, North Carolina, A&M, Arkansas, Clemson. Then it gets interesting because I think the next group of teams: Florida State, Georgia, Oklahoma, maybe Oak State after winning the. That's probably where I'm looking at this point.
Yeah.
Where's Georgia?
I think I like
There they are.
Florida State here.
Yeah, Florida State at 7 feels like the right answer to me.
Okay.
Um,
And then once you get past that, it's will the committee value RPI, which after today maybe they don't, or will they value a regular season champion like Oklahoma? And are they consistent as they go through this? Right, that'll be what we'll find out tomorrow.
Don't count on it, Mark. But I'll say this. I mean, usually it feels like with the top 8 seeds in particular, and more than even with the hosts, the top 8 seeds, it seems like RPI tends to be a huge part of it, the overriding part of it. Now that said, we've had Oklahoma in that spot. I mean,
Yeah.
all week Georgia went 0-1 in their tournament. Oklahoma went 3-1. Reached the title game. For me, it's a fairly easy call. I mean, the team that won its league by 3 games and then reached the conference tournament championship game. I don't know. I know they're lower in the RPI.
What we got. Yeah. I mean, this is our last chance, right? Because everything gets announced tomorrow. So if we have new information, new thoughts, this would be the time to raise it. But yeah, I mean, based on what we've seen, I mean, Georgia might be top 8, but there's I would reward a regular season champion who won their league pretty convincingly, made it all the way to the tournament final. They've been pretty good all year.
Yeah.
Okay.
K Rizzle. Okay.
So after that, we got a group of teams. You got some ACC teams, Virginia, NC State. We'll just slide these over here.
Yeah.
Let's see who else we got.
Oklahoma State, you mentioned.
Oklahoma State definitely would be in this group.
Santa Barbara, I think Lady Needsy owes Kendall an apology. The RPI needs report. The RPI needs report insisted Santa Barbara would drop more than it did after playing UC Riverside this weekend. It didn't happen. They stayed at 13.
Mm-hmm.
So good for them. 26-4 in the Big West. And I actually thought it was a pretty decent year in the Big West by recent standards. And they dominated it. I mean, it's just super impressive.
Yeah, no doubt. So I'll go ahead and grab these other hosts. Arizona and East Carolina. Oop.
It'll be interesting to see how they slot Arizona and Oregon State based on
No
the
doubt.
RPI gap, the fact that the Beavers did win the series, the head-to-head series on the road at the last weekend, but Arizona's won the two rings. So I mean, like, how do they balance those things? That'll be very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, how do you guys see this? Is it Oklahoma State winning the Big 12 tournament, or is it one of the ACC schools? Or
I like Oklahoma State here. I mean,
yeah,
you can even convince me on Oklahoma State over Georgia, but I'm fine staying status quo on that one if you want.
Yeah. 20 Q1, Q2 total wins.
Yeah.
Won the conference tournament, finished second in
and Virginia
in the regular season.
Virginia, NC State. How do you break that tie?
Probably in that order. Just they're so close. I mean, NC State has more high-end wins.
I go with NC State. So NC State, granted, we know the committee in the past doesn't necessarily look at head-to-head, but NC State won the head-to-head in Charlottesville.
That is true.
Yeah.
And that was late.
2 weeks ago. It was like 3 weeks ago.
That's a good tiebreaker. Yeah.
That's a good point. I mean, otherwise, their conference records are similar. NC State has just so many more high-end wins.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. So at that point, we know that the committee likes Arizona for winning the league, UCSB, East Carolina, Oregon State. I mean, I would have Arizona ahead of Oregon State, especially since we know what the committee's going to reward that. But I'm not sure what you guys think. Oregon State won the head-to-head, right? So that's that's the
I like
your circular logic here. Right?
I like Santa Barbara as the next team. I'll say that.
I do too.
I would take the Gauchos over both.
Dominated their league. They've got some high-end wins out of conference.
13 RPI.
Yep.
Okay.
Beavers, by the way, 18. Arizona 31.
Okay. So this is the way I would do the last three. I would have Arizona, Oregon State, East Carolina.
I think
what do you guys think?
I would agree. I mean, I just think the two rings, rings trumps the head-to-head and the RPI for me. I know it was only a half game in the regular season, but then they just kind of backed it up this weekend. That's pretty loud for me.
Yeah. Okay. Anything you want to add there, Kendall? Okay.
Nope, I'm good.
So that's our top 16. We know the hosts. We do not know the order, but this is our order: Tennessee, Kentucky, North Carolina, Texas A&M, Arkansas, Clemson, Florida State, Oklahoma, Georgia, Oklahoma State, NC State, Virginia, Santa Barbara, Arizona, Oregon State, and East Carolina. So this next part, it should be pretty easy. We know the automatic bids, so we can fly through this pretty quickly. The question will be, are they twos? Are they threes? And then once we get to the bubble, we're going to have to make some really difficult decisions. So we only had 2 stolen bids this year, which, that is low. We averaged in the last 10 years before this year, we averaged 3.3. We had Tulane winning the American with East Carolina also getting in. And we also had, in the Missouri Valley, we had Evansville winning that automatic with Indiana State getting in, but nothing else.
Yeah.
So,
do you want me to just run through the auto bids real quick?
If you want,
instead of just going through the sheet and going one by one.
Good call.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. All right.
And I'll just move them over where they go. Right.
Okay. So we got Tulane of the American Athletic. That'll be their 23rd appearance, guys. This was a team that got in last year by winning the conference tournament. So Jay Yule, if you want a coach that will win a conference tournament, just hire Jay Ullman.
Yeah.
Bryant wins the America East, the Bryant Athletic Conference, their fourth NCAA tournament appearance. VCU wins the A10. That's their 14th NCAA tournament appearance. We talked about Duke winning the Atlantic Coast Conference. That is their 11th appearance. Stetson, who was a source of a lot of drama earlier this week against Austin Peay, they finished the job in the A-Sun tourney. That is their 19th appearance in the NCAA tournament. Oklahoma State wins the Big 12 tournament. Guys, that is Oklahoma State's 49th appearance in the NCAA tournament. Pretty impressive.
That's a lot.
Feels like a lot.
Granted, they've had a historically good program, but this one actually surprised me how many overall appearances. St. John's wins the Big East. Mike Hampton, the boys are back. 38 appearances now for the Johnnies. The Big South, let's give a little hat tip to High Point, their first NCAA tournament appearance this season. Quite an accomplishment for HPU. In the Big Ten, Nebraska, Josh Karen, I think, hit 6 or 7 bombs this week at the Big Ten tournament. Keep an eye on them in the postseason.
He just hit another one.
He went off. 18 NCAA tournament appearances. And, guys, this was a year that I felt like Will Bolt needed a win, and they won in a big way. The Big West, we talked about UCSB. This is their 13th appearance. The Colonial, and we'll certainly talk about Charleston out of the Colonial here in just a bit. But UNC Wilmington beats Charleston earlier today. This will be their 12th appearance. Conference USA, we've got DBU, who put up a 17th spot on La Tech earlier today. This is their 13th appearance. Another first appearance, fellas. The Fighting Norths of Northern Kentucky win the Horizon, otherwise used to be known as the Wright State Athletic Conference. It's now the NKU Conference, so it's their first appearance in the NCAA tournament. In the Ivy League, Penn wins that league again. If you remember, they gave teams all they could handle in the Auburn Regional last year. The Quake Show is back. This is their 7th appearance and 2nd straight. Another first, Rob McCoy and the Purple Eagles of Niagara win the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference. So congrats to those guys for making an appearance. Then the who?
The man.
That's who we're talking about. People would have been.
Yeah, man. And moving on, because this will take forever if we stop. Billy Gernon in Western Michigan won the MAC, 12th appearance in Western Michigan program history. Mark mentioned the stolen bids earlier in the Mo Valley. Evansville, their 4th NCAA tournament appearance. And I tweeted this out last night. I got to give him some love. This is the first time Evansville has made the NCAA tournament since David Seifert was their pitching coach. And, of course, that year they got to a regional. The next year, Coach Seifert took over as head coach. So congrats to the Purple Aces. I know Seif was proud. The Mountain West, the Wonder Dogs are back. 35th appearance in the NCAA tournament. They knocked off San Jose State. Actually had to beat San Jose State twice, if I'm not mistaken. So nice job by Ryan Overland and the Dogs. The Northeast Conference, Long Island making their 4th appearance in the NCAA tournament. In the Ohio Valley.
And that was a late comeback too. It looked like Sacred Heart had that. I think that was a 9th inning rally. That was spirited. Go on. Sorry.
Yeah, and Fitt, another one where the LIU had to win, had to beat Sacred Heart twice to win that conference championship. So great job, LIU. SEMO wins the Ohio Valley, their 6th appearance. Arizona, of course, making their 43rd appearance in the NCAA tournament by winning the Pac-12. Army, their 12th appearance in the NCAA tournament. They beat, of course, Navy, Chuck Ristano's midshipman a couple weeks ago in the championship. Tennessee won the Southeastern Conference today, 14th appearance in the NCAA tournament. Just a very business-like week for the Vols. I think they'll be ready for the postseason. Wofford, fellas, this is a team that I feel like multiple times in the Todd Interdonato era, we felt like they were postseason worthy. They left zero doubt in J.J. Edwards' first year by winning the Southern Conference Championship in emphatic fashion today over Sanford. 2nd appearance, first since 2007. Nicholls State. Go ahead, Aaron.
I was just going to add, I mean, and JJ was right there with Todd all those years. The two of them really built that program together. Happy for him to be able to break through this year. They finished strong.
Yeah, no question about it. Nicholls State, Mike Silva continues to do, to me, one of the better jobs in college baseball. Nicholls State back-to-back NCAA tournament appearances. This is their 5th overall in program history. ORU, Aaron, I'll let you read this one.
Listen, I'm proud of the Golden Eagles. I like to take credit for this one. I feel like I lit the fuse for them. Coming off an Omaha appearance last year, they had a disappointing season going, and they turned it around. Once I got involved. So hat tip to you, Golden Eagles.
And good job, Aaron.
Yeah, and just
you,
checking in. Hey, there are, and by the way, their RPI. We're kidding here, but their RPI did go up to 266 after the conference tournament.
I mean, that's way better.
But they do.
Progress.
I mean. ORU does have several guys back from last year's team, so keep an eye on them. I know the RPI is low, but keep an eye on them. They're a club that could be dangerous. Southern Miss, the Golden Eagles win the Sun Belt. They were down to Georgia Southern late in that game. That would have been a stolen bid, but Matthew Russo, yet again, the baby Bandabino for the Golden Eagles, strikes, and that's their 20th appearance in the NCAA tournament. Christian Ostrander's first year leading that program, and he's back in the NCAA tournament. There'll be a handful for somebody. Grambling wins a SWAC. This is their 5th NCAA tournament appearance, first since 2010. Grand Canyon, this is the weird one. Grand Canyon will make its 3rd NCAA tournament appearance next weekend. The Lobes were actually eliminated from the WAC tournament earlier in the week, but Tarleton State is not eligible. They have one more year to go until they can play in the NCAA tournament, and thus it is the regular season champ, Greg Wallace's GCU Lobes. And then lastly, Brock Ungrit's Toreros of San Diego, 9th appearance in the NCAA tournament. And they were not, officially in the mix for a host site, but this is a club that, finished the year with a top 20 RPI. By the way, has a series win over Arizona and played DB really tough in non-conference. So it could be a really scary club in the postseason, but that's a wrap on your automatic bids.
Yeah, good stuff, guys.
Kendall, that was really, really impressive work. That might be.
Thank you.
I mean, you were focused. You had information. That was great, dude. You crushed it.
Well, I text all these guys so much, I should know all the coaches' names. So,
well, for sure.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, good stuff. So
Your turn,
now,
Mark.
so now we need to fill out this field. So there are certain teams that we know are going to get in. So let's go there first. So we know Wake Forest is going to get in. So I'm going to move them over for the 2 seed here. We know Texas is going to get in. We know West Virginia is going to get in. I'm going to move them to the 2 seed. As we continue to move down here, we know Irvine is going to get in. I'm going to move them to the 2 line. We know La Tech will be a 2 seed. We know Indiana State certainly is going to get in. These are kind of no-brainers. We know these 4 SEC schools, Mississippi State, LSU, Vanderbilt, and South Carolina. Some of them either were already in great shape or they played their way in Hoover. They're going to be in. Then I would say the Sun Belt champion Louisiana would be another one. And then we need to talk about things because everyone else is either they're a 3 seed or they're either going to miss out and be really upset with us first and then the committee tomorrow. So so let's start with that. As we go through here, do you see some teams on this list here on the left that you feel really strongly should be included, and let's go ahead and get them added to the field?
Yeah, let's see here. Boy, this is going to be interesting, actually. So looking at our ladder.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Kendall. You take the lead. I'm just stalling for time.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I got one.
I will go.
Sure.
I will go with Illinois.
Yes,
that's who I was going to go with. They won the Big Ten. That's the 4th-rated RPI conference.
Go ahead, Mark. Yeah, I was about to say the same RPI thing. So continue.
With you. Yeah, 100%. I mean, you win the 4th-rated RPI conference, you should be in the field. So check.
Yep.
All right. Next.
I feel
it's a little tougher now. What about Oregon?
Yeah, Oregon's a good answer.
Yeah,
I think even again, I know the RPI is a little lower than a lot of bubbles, 52, but for a Pac-12 team that went 19-11 in the league, I think that's an easy call, Oregon.
Okay, they're going to get in.
Yep.
So yeah, and here's my thing too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and here's my thing too on Oregon is, again, this is where we urge consistency from the committee, is if Arizona is in on the merits of its regular season, then even though Oregon's RPI is 52, they finished third in that conference, so they should be in. They finished one game out of first place.
And the same goes, for Cal. Really, it's just a question of here's what I'm going to pose to the group, guys. This is going to be one of those situations where Cal gets snubbed because it's a horse trading situation. Oh, you can have Arizona as a host, but you don't get Cal as an at-large. Or is it going to be, oh, well, this year we're deciding we're emphasizing conference strength, conference finish. And so maybe that benefits Cal. It could go either way. I don't know, but it wouldn't shock me if Cal is a casualty of the horse trade. But then again, I mean, it's a 64 RPI, like that's well outside a typical at-large team.
Yeah.
However, Arizona at 31 is well outside a typical host, RPI. So it's going to be very interesting. Cal's a fascinating test case, and we'll get to it later.
Right. So one thing, I mean, Alabama has a really good RPI. What are they, mid-20s now? They have all those high-profile wins. I mean, I think they're going to get in despite, only, they lost the opener. That would be a team I would lobby for at this point.
And real quickly, you touched on the high profile wins, and they're the only team all year long that won a series against Tennessee, right? Do I have that right?
Correct.
Who's that?
Alabama, yes.
Alabama.
Okay. Correct.
Also took a series from South Carolina and Arkansas. I mean, like,
LSU.
Come on, like that's and LSU. I mean, it's just. I know
and
that
they beat LSU when LSU was LSU, not when they were struggling. Right. So.
I know this sounds really I know this sounds very odd, but I like Alabama's high end series wins, and frankly, again, this sounds really strange, but their record is kind of torpedoed by the fact they were swept a couple of times.
Yeah,
that really hurt them.
Yeah, it's just a interesting body work from that perspective. It's just they were a very up and down team, but their highs for me are just so loud. And couple that with a 24 RPI, I think I get it. It's 13 and 18 aggregate. Well, actually, does that not count the midweek SEC games? What's their aggregate SEC, Mark?
Yeah, they didn't have any.
They didn't. Okay, that's right. Okay.
Yeah, they stopped the Auburn series. Yeah,
that's right.
I would think too that Bama ranks well with the regional advisory committee. I mean, that's a really deep offensive lineup, and I mean, they certainly passed the eyeball test at least with the frontline pitchers. So, they would be in for me.
Yep.
Okay. So, somebody throw a name out there. How about
UConn? How about UConn, Mark?
Yeah.
Well, see, it's interesting. So, let's actually compare.
Number 5 conference, by the way.
Yeah, and that's loud. I mean, so if we were to compare
ahead of the Pac-12,
exactly. I think that's
they're going to get the Big East is going to get 2 bids.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, like you said, did you say number 5 RPI conference? I mean, that's nuts.
They're number 7.
Oh, 7.
Are
okay,
7?
That makes more sense. Yeah. Sun Belt's 5. Big 10 is 4, by the way. Maybe not getting the
Sun Belt's 5. That's right.
Yeah. Big 10 maybe not getting the credit it's due this year, being the number 4 conference. Sun Belt 5, Pac-12 6, Big East 7. I'll just go through the top 10 real quick because it's useful. SoCon is 8, Conference USA 9, and the CAA is 10. So if you were to compare, for instance, Charleston and UConn, they're back-to-back in the RPI. I think it's a good time for this discussion because they're back-to-back in the RPI. One of them won the number 7 RPI conference. The other one won the number 10 RPI conference. UConn also went 0-2 in the conference tournament. Charleston reached the title game. The quad wins are UConn's 5-8 Q1, Charleston 3-4, UConn 10-17 versus 1-2, Charleston 9-10. I mean, the biggest thing is Charleston has more Q4 games by a lot. 21-4 against Q4, which kind of torpedoes their non-conference strength schedule. UConn is 9-0 Q4, has a number 26 non-conference strength schedule. But I mean, there's some. This is the odd part. There's some high-end things to like about Charleston. I mean, they won the series against all the good teams in their league. I mean, they only lost one series, I believe, in the league. They went 21-5 for Pete's sake. But they took 2 out of 3 from Northeastern. 2 out of 3 at Campbell, 2 out of 3 at UNCW. They also won 2 out of 3 in the midweeks against Georgia Southern, who's a bubble team. They won 2 out of 3 against Wofford, who not only is an auto team, but I mean, they finished 46 in the RPI. That's a good series win. And Penn, who was a regional finalist last year and won their league again this year. So like they actually did some good things. Those are 3 good kind of 2 out of 3s that they won out of conference. They just happened to play Youngstown State 3 times and they swept them. They swept Youngstown State, but Youngstown State was 16-44 with a 284 RPI, and it just crushed them.
Yeah, it's a little early for Charleston for me.
Yeah,
I think that that
Yeah.
the non-conference strength of schedule is problematic, and
26 versus 177
in the past
between those 2 teams.
when the committee's broken ties, I don't know what this one will do, but that has played a major part.
I just think too, like, and again, I'm not saying yay or nay on Charleston just yet. I think they're closer to the bottom here, but like, it's important when you're a mid-major to go out and intent to schedule good teams. Connecticut clearly had a good intent to schedule. They scheduled really good teams. Charleston, there could be an argument to be made that they didn't intend to schedule great teams.
I would certainly push back on that. I mean, they played Nebraska. Wofford and Penn, who are both good programs coming off, good years. I mean, that's 3 good weekends. They also played Marshall and Youngstown, but like, I don't think their non-conference schedule is nearly as bad as the numbers say. I think it's actually the intent is not that bad. Yeah, I mean, I think it's way better than that. It's just skewed by Youngstown.
Yeah.
Anyway, but we can come back. All I'm saying is like they're back to back with UConn and the RPI. They both won the regular seasons. Like why, I don't know why UConn would be a no-brainer and Charleston, would be that far behind him. I feel like they're very similar cases.
Well, it's just what UConn did in early season. They went out and they got their heads beat in, but they went on the road and they played teams that were better than they were, and they got beat. And and who you play we can all muster gaudy records against teams that are worse than us, right? Yeah. So when you go out and you play teams that are good, you're going to lose games, and that's kind of the whole strength of schedule component that hopefully the committee is going to consider.
Yeah. And I think UConn deserves to be in. I just also think Charleston does if there's room. And it's worth noting that one of the teams that beat UConn during that really rough first month was Cal. Cal swept them. Granted it's early and it's a team from New England going to California. Like you expect them to lose, but they did get swept. And so that's one of the strikes or one of the marks, I guess, in Cal's favor, along with sweeping Oregon State. I mean, sweeping UConn and sweeping Oregon State are pretty loud for Cal. In addition to finishing 17-13 in the league, and they went 2-1 in the conference tournament, so that's 19-14 aggregate, with a win over Arizona, by the way, in that conference tournament, which was helpful because they got swept by Arizona the last time they played, but. It's a pretty interesting resume. The only thing that's hurting them really is the RPI. And I don't know if digging into why they're so low in the RPI, I guess it's 17-2 Q4.
Right.
It's because the pack itself.
And so many home games.
Yeah, that's true. It's 22-7 at home, 10-8 on the road. Still a winning record on the road, which I like, but the thing that hurts these Pac-12 contenders is the bottom of the league was weak. So even though some of them have really good non-conference strength of schedules, Cal not being one of those teams, Cal's 193 in that metric, but some of them have really good non-conference strength schedules, but they still take an RPI hit because UCLA and some of these other teams had really bad years, but which is a weird, unusual dynamic.
Right. Okay, so. I think for me I like UCF here. They're 33 in the RPI.
I like them and TCU.
Yeah. And
one thing about
39.
TCU. Yeah, I mean, one thing I really like about TCU, they went 8-0 against the Pac-12 in non-conference. Also beat Arizona, granted midweek game, but the committee doesn't know any better. So, I mean, 8-0 against the Pac-12 is pretty loud to me.
I agree.
Non-conference.
Yeah, put both those teams in. I'm totally with you. Those are easy calls.
But let's not forget last year, UC Irvine dominated the Pac-12 and was left out of the field.
Didn't matter.
Yeah. Should we patch Coach Rooney in to talk about that again? Relitigate that one?
Yeah, he'll love that. So we have 5 teams left. So as we look at this, we have Georgia Tech and Louisville from the ACC. We have Cincinnati and Kansas State from the Big 12. We have Xavier. We have Indiana. We have Charleston. We have Northeastern, Cal, Florida, James Madison, Coastal, Troy, and Georgia Southern.
Yep.
So let's look at it from the other way. Are there teams that you would dismiss at this point?
Georgia Southern.
Georgia Southern.
54 RPI, 17-13 in the regular season Sun Belt. They went 3-1 in the conference tournament. So that's a 20 and
they made it to the finals. And it was 20, a heck of a game.
It was.
They lost. Yeah.
20 and 14 aggregate.
So my issue with GSU would be this. If you look at their non-conference, they lost every non-conference series outside of Radford. If you look in conference, they were swept by another bubble team in James Madison, and they were also swept by Louisiana, and lost a series to Coastal.
Won a series against Southern Miss.
Yeah, that's their high water mark. That pretty much is their high water mark in their entire resume, because they also lost a series to Old Dominion.
Yeah,
so. Just seems a little light to me. Hell of a run in the conference tournament, but just seems a little light to me.
Yeah, there's some empty calories there. You know, you're sweeping the ULMs and the Marshalls, and you need to do that. But it feels like some empty calories.
Gotta hate those empty calories.
All right, I think I'm okay with that. Northeastern we can cross off. We don't have to talk about it. It's a 35 RPI. Yeah, listen. Hey, you know what? We all know I pushed for that team the preseason and stuck by them for a while. They didn't get it done this year. I mean, it just didn't get it done.
Okay. Anyone else you want to push out?
I don't like Louisville's chances.
Oh, Troy.
Yeah. The way they finished. I mean, Troy, gosh, I mean, they were looking really good. And they still went 18-12 in the league, despite losing their last series to JMU at home. Then go 1-2. Just boy, what's that? 6-8. They lost 8 of their last 11. Don't love that. That's just a tough way to go. And to finish at 57 in the RPI, I don't see it for them.
Yeah. With that said, I kind of feel good about the JMU a little bit. I like the fact that they won the series against Troy. They just look at the resume. They swept Georgia Southern, as we mentioned. Did lose a series at Coastal. Yeah, I mean, it's not an awesome resume.
Yeah, it's.
They went 19-15 aggregate.
They get a big boost from going to Arkansas and losing 3 out of 4. Granted, they won one of those games, which is something, but they get a big RPI boost from that.
Yeah.
I mean, how impressed are you? How impressed are you? Like, it's great they scheduled it, but how impressed are you with that? Like, you lose 3 out of 4, and should that be a plus? Really?
It's a non-conference strength.
Yep.
So that's there's only 4 teams better. So obviously that's something that the committee will look at.
But I mean, like, it feels to me like it kind of matters how you do against that schedule. And I'm looking at their non-conference games, and I'm looking for wins against like regional caliber teams. I see 1 against Arkansas.
1 out of 4. Yeah.
1 out of 4 against Arkansas. And I'm still scrolling here. They beat Niagara. They split 2 games with Niagara. And that's something. Niagara's at 103 RPI. They had a really good year. For that league. But I mean, that's okay. That's 2. And then they won 1 out of 3 at Coastal. I mean, again, credit you for, that's not non-conference, but like there's just to me, it feels like there's just not that much here, guys. And they swept Georgia Southern, who's, as we already crossed them out. Like, they're good. They had a good year, but we crossed them out. And so it's like they got 3 wins the way I see it against regional teams, and one of those wins is against Niagara, and the other 2 are a series they lost.
Can I introduce a team here
Mm-hmm.
named Coastal Carolina that finished one game behind JMU in the standings, won a head-to-head series over JMU, and has a higher RPI than JMU.
So I'm going to need some convincing. I'm going to need some convincing on Coastal because they really didn't play well down the stretch. It just felt like they needed to go out and earn it, and they didn't. I mean, I guess I should revise that.
They did win a series against Louisiana at home.
Yeah. They did win their last 2 series. I mean, Georgia. So I'll revise that a little bit. I retract that. They won 2 out of 3 against Georgia State and swept Marshall on the road, but kind of laid an egg in the conference tournament. 1-2. Got swept by Southern Miss. The first week of May, and Troy back to back, and Creighton in a 2-game midweek set. Like it was an 8-game losing streak there from late April, early May. That hurt them.
So can I just cut to the chase here?
Yeah.
JMU, Coastal, and you could even throw Troy in here. They all have very similar awards, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, God bless you.
So if they all have similar awards, they're all similar RPIs. What do you think is going to be the tiebreaker here?
Yeah, the committee chair.
Is there a man in the room?
I mean, and trust me, I'm not sitting here saying there's sinister stuff going on here, but conventional wisdom would suggest if you have 3 teams with very similar resumes, who the hell is going to get the benefit of the doubt?
And hey,
I don't know. Maybe the team with a retiring coach
who has a man on the And listen, I mean, at least if we're looking for wins against postseason caliber teams, I mean, I'll give this for Coastal. I see Wake Forest on here, 2 out of 3 against JMU. I see. Let's see what else we got. North Carolina they beat on the road.
Illinois,
Louisiana 2 out of 3. You mentioned Illinois.
Swept Michigan, which Michigan actually ended up having a good conference season.
So I actually do think there's more to like here about Coastal than maybe I was first expecting. I'll backtrack a little bit here.
Yeah, Georgia Southern series win, beat 2 out of 3 Louisiana. They just had that weird stretch from Creighton. Note to self: don't go play a 2-game midweek series against Creighton when you have Troy and Southern Miss coming up the next 2 weekends.
Yeah.
It's just. And do they get dinged for finishing 7th in the league?
Well, I mean, it's how much, right? Because they
were 1 game behind,
right? But it's also it's 7th in the league with a 4-9 Q1. Just 36 RPI fine. Like if you were a little higher in the standings, I don't know, guys. They're in the mix.
Yeah. Well, if East Carolina didn't host today, I would probably be a little less bullish on this pick. Just speaking frankly. I do think that, Coastal Carolina, Indiana, Florida, they all have representation on the committee.
Go ahead and put them in. Next.
I mean, I hate to be that way, but that's kind of the way I see it right now.
It's hard to imagine those teams getting left out given that. I mean, especially where they all are have bubble cases. It's not like it's
right. It's not
like it's not like 2008 when Timmy Weiser is running the show. I mean, it's these are at least defensible. Mm-hmm. Look at the Timmy Weiser catching drive-bys here.
Yeah,
catching strays. Catching strays. Excuse me, I messed up the expression. Indiana's 55 in the RPI. If you want to talk about these 3 teams that have a man on the committee,
mm-hmm.
Indiana's 55. Which they had to work hard to get there. They played pretty well down the stretch. 15-9 in the league. They went 2-2 in the conference tournament. Lost to Nebraska there a couple times in a row. Beat Purdue and Ohio State. They lost the head-to-head at Nebraska also. So they went 1-4 against Nebraska. Nebraska really did what they could to keep the Hoosiers out. Mm-hmm. Won a series at Purdue, who had a good year and wound up finishing at 91 in the RPI. But Purdue at one point was projected in our field as an at-large. So Indiana kind of helped hasten their demise.
Yeah.
What else did they do? 2 out of 3 from Penn State who made the finals of the conference tournament. 2 out of 3 from Maryland on the road. Not a regional team, but that's something. 1 out of 3 home against Illinois. 1 out of 3 at home against Troy. beat DBU, lost to Alabama and Arizona. I mean, this is a team that seemed like they scheduled quite well, aggressively.
Yeah.
Went to baseball at the beach, played Duke, Coastal, split with those two teams, beat Coastal. And there's actually a lot to like about this Indiana resume.
Yeah, they certainly scheduled well. Non-conference strength of schedule 67.
And it feels way better than that, doesn't it?
Yeah, and strength of schedule 39. So it actually went up in conference, which kind of says something about the Big Ten.
Yeah. Interesting. I actually, that's again, I know they have a man, in the room, and we kind of roll our eyes about that, but their case is interesting regardless.
Right.
And then
so there
Florida.
are a few teams we haven't. Let's talk about Florida. So Florida, kind of my favorite stat with Florida is they played the 6 teams in the SEC, and they split those games. They went 9-9 in those 3-game series. There's not many teams in the country going to do that. I mean, the problem is, so that's the good side. The problem is they lost a whole lot of midweek games, and it just killed them. They weren't competitive against Florida State, who's obviously really good, but I mean, Florida should be competitive with FSU. So
0-3 in those games,
yeah.
and it just seemed like they were getting their brains beat in a few times there.
So I mean, they're the kind of club that, if they show up in your regional, you're not really excited about it because their good is really good. They're just not really good that often, and that's the dynamic that you have to parse through and understand, how to deal with them.
I don't love that, you're 1 game over 500. You go to the conference tournament. At that time, there were 2 games over 500, and you lose the play-in game 0-1, and that's it. And it's like, gosh, you're playing for your postseason lives, And
so was Vanderbilt. I mean, it's
absolutely. They both were. But I mean, like, one of those teams has to lose that game, and they were the one that did, And it's like, boy, 28 and 27. Just a very uneven year. I know they had some high-end wins, but I mean, it's the series win against A&M is loud, certainly. I mean, you mentioned Mississippi State at LSU, Georgia. You get enough chances, you're going to win some games. Again, if you get enough chances against good teams,
some teams will, right?
Well, yeah, they have talent. We all know that. Does that make them a good team? I don't think they're a very good team. I mean, just based on the season that they had. Yeah. But they have talent. They're capable of beating anyone. But they just didn't have a very good year. It feels like you're rewarding a team that didn't have a very good year if you put them in, and maybe they get in. But do you think they had a very good year, Mark? Preseason top 5 team went 13-9.
Well, certainly compared to expectations, no, they did not. But is that the measurement? Are you compared to what we expected you to do in the preseason? Do I think they're one of the best 34 at-large teams? Yes, absolutely, I do. Do I think that they deserved it based on how they played this year? Maybe not, because I mean, there are a lot of teams that beat a lot of worse teams that they did that have a much gaudier record, right? So, maybe so, right? Maybe you want to penalize them for losing to Tennessee and losing to Kentucky and losing to Arkansas and those kinds of clubs. Well,
how about Stetson? How about Stetson and UCF and St. Mary's?
And they absolutely did lose. Well, UCF's a tournament team, but I mean, did lose. They did lose those midweek games. They certainly did, and that's why we're having this discussion.
How about Missouri, guys? Remember they got swept at Missouri?
And that was brutal. Lost 3 one-run games. It was brutal. And I do think that might be the reason if they don't make it, they one of those one-run games goes the other way. We're not having this discussion.
You could pick a lot of reasons, but yeah, right. That would be one. I mean, you win. You could play that game for a lot of teams. Oh, if they only win this game, it would be different. Like it's a fine margin in a lot of cases.
Right, but a lot of teams aren't playing Arkansas and Kentucky and Tennessee.
Yep.
Right. So you want to pick somebody like James Madison. Who did they beat? That's
I'm not impressed with
anywhere
James Madison.
Comparable to Florida. Pick any of these teams: Indiana, Kansas State, Cincinnati, Coastal. Cal, Georgia Tech. Did they beat
I mean,
anybody anywhere
Cal-
near as good as Florida did?
Cal did sweep Oregon
Oregon
State.
Is does that do those
I think that's
those 3 games compare to the 9-9 against the top 6 teams in the SEC?
and we can't know how Cal would have done in the SEC because they didn't play in the SEC, and that's why this is a challenge. If everyone played the same schedule, this would be easy. And
It's
like I don't think it's fair to
unbalanced.
just I don't think it's fair to
Absolutely
just
is.
automatically assume that Cal would have done worse than Florida. I don't know about that. I think Cal's pretty good.
Yeah.
Well. And so that's what we're trying to do is we're trying to reconcile these differences. And so Kendall, you haven't weighed in on this at all. What do you got here on the Gators? What's your gut saying?
My gut is that they get in, but I mean, I kind of agree to a degree. I kind of agree with both of you to some extent. Like I do think Florida. I think Florida is a good team on a 3-game weekend series. The problem is if you look at what they did in midweek, clearly they don't have any depth on the mound because they got shelled in midweek games. So, I mean, the thing with Florida is, are you putting a team in that looks good, that looks halfway decent on the weekend, or are you leaving a team out that showed that they have no depth?
And I think halfway decent is a good way to put it because they did go again 13 and 18 in the SEC. So I mean, like they're not like some great world beater team on weekends either. It's not just midweeks that they sucked at. They weren't that great on weekends either. Granted, they had some high end wins. Yes, they did. We talked about that. That's why they're in the discussion at all.
With that said, I'm going with what I think here, and not what I think the committee's necessarily going to do. The way I evaluate teams is, if you were going to tell me I have to play those guys this weekend, would I rather play Florida or would I rather play James Madison? Give me JMU 365 days of the year.
Yes. I mean,
same with Indiana, same with Georgia Tech, same with Charleston.
Not with that reason. Of those. Indiana, I think, might just be better than Florida. Indiana's battle tested. Hey, listen. I think they might be better than Florida. I don't think Florida's that good. Just don't think they're that good.
They're certainly not very deep.
I mean, Florida has gone 0-2 in regionals before. I mean, like it's not like there's some juggernaut just because they played in regionals. Sure, but like just because you play in the SEC doesn't mean you're automatically better than some team that doesn't play in the SEC. Like you just laughed at that, but I don't think it's some outrageous notion. Like they're both on the bubble for a reason. They both had bubble caliber seasons.
Just look at the competition they're playing.
Understand that, but again, like.
Look at what the SEC tournament was like this week with 13 and 17 teams making it all the way to the semifinals, making it to the finals. It's a gauntlet. It is a cutthroat. Florida had the strongest intra-conference strength of schedule, number 1 out of the 14 teams, right? Inside the conference. Then you look at outside the conference. They had the strongest strength of schedule overall, right? If you're not rewarding that, what are you doing?
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, again, I've made the case against. Mark's made the case for. And they have a man on the committee. Of
course.
And they have a man.
And they
on the
also
committee.
have someone on the committee, which
Yeah, that never matters.
Go ahead and put them in. They're in. They're gonna get in. Why are we wasting our time with this discussion? Yeah. They're gonna get in. Next.
So who else has a man on the committee?
Coastal.
Indiana, Coastal.
Kansas State.
I was going to say that's the next team probably. And Kansas State is another team that I think if I were just mapping this out, I would probably put them in anyway, but it's, warts. Yeah. That's why they're on the bubble.
So what I like about Kansas State is, last year they went through this deal where they got dinged for non-conference strength of schedule. So what did Pete do? He went out and he scheduled really difficult. He didn't win a ton of those games, but he really went out and tried to improve his non-conference strength of schedule. And that's the kind of things in my opinion, that the committee will tend to reward, right? Hey, we sent a message to you last year. You reacted to that message and tried to improve that. And I do think that's meaningful to the guys in the room.
Yeah. And we're talking about, midweek trips where you're playing Tennessee and at Clemson back to back,
Brutal.
where you're going, randomly you're Kansas State and you're making a Northeast swing to play UConn Northeastern, two good programs with plenty of talent that had pretty good years. You're playing those back to back on a midweek swing. Like they made a real effort. And all that said, their non-conference strength of schedule is still just like 79. It's not awesome, but they made an obvious effort. They battled their way to 15-15 in the league, 45 RPI. You can poke holes in their case, but I think across the board, they're pretty solid. I think they're in.
Yeah. Kendall?
Yep, I'm good with K-State.
All right.
So
that leaves us with 3.
We got 3 spots left. Oh boy.
I mean, for me, I mean, and I made this case earlier, and I know you guys are hesitant on it a little bit, but I think Charleston's the next team. I mean, I just, listen, again, it's like Duke I was talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
You got this glaring flaw with the non-conference strength of schedule, and you still manage to play yourself into the proper RPI range. Like Duke still, despite a non-conference schedule outside the 200, they still play their way in the top 16. Charleston, despite non-conference strength schedule of 177, they still played their way to number 42 in the RPI and won their league and won those series I talked about. And their non-conference schedule included 3 pretty good best of 3 series, if you count the Georgia Southern midweeks. So I just think it's a postseason resume, and I'll take the team that won its league over some of these, like a James Madison for me is just a conference pick. I mean, you look at wins they had over postseason caliber teams. There's 3, and one of them's Niagara, and one of them is 1 out of 4 against Arkansas, and one of them is Coastal, who's on the bubble. And I can't justify JMU over them, for instance.
Yeah, in the pecking order, I like what Charleston has done compared to JMU. The only hesitance I have is what the committee has done in the past of rewarding non-conference strength of schedule. That's my hesitancy.
Yep.
And if the committee is going back differently, then boom, hey, we're fine. I just, that's a difficult decision to make.
Yeah, and it just seems like, again, if you play your way into the proper RPI tier, then it feels like it shouldn't matter because that's baked into the RPI. It's baked in. It's and they overcame that and they finished 42. Like, what more do you want from a mid-major team? They went 21-5 in their league. I feel like they did what they needed to do. And I don't know. At the end of the day, it's a little different from past cases where these mid-major conference champs got snubbed because they're 42 in the RPI. They're not 50. They're not 52. I think that difference matters. I really do.
Yeah. I mean, the only concern for me is the non-conference strength of schedule, and if that isn't the carrying tool, then they're in. If it is, then they're not. So I mean, that said, go ahead, Kendall.
No, I was going to say, what about Georgia Tech?
Yeah, for me, it's a similar discussion. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the thing about it is we just got through like justifying Florida being in based on high-end series wins in their conference. Well, let's just take a look at Georgia Tech.
You got 3.
Compared to some of these bubble teams, swept North Carolina State, series win over Virginia on the road, series win over Duke.
Yep, and they won. And they won 6 out of their. Yeah, those are good. And they won 6 of their 10 series in the league, which to me is good, including 5 of their last 7 series, which they didn't start well in conference and they righted the ship. And I think that matters. And it's not just because they're playing easier teams. Like they won 3 series against tough teams during that stretch. And again, for them, the knock is non-conference strength schedule. Here we go again, like 202 non-conference strength of schedule. It's even worse than Charleston. Even worse than Charleston, and they're 7 spots behind Charleston in the RPI. I don't know how you make the case.
I would have them behind Charleston, actually.
Okay. Last night you didn't.
Yeah, I think I would.
Look at me.
Yeah, maybe. Charleston jumped up in the RPI with the win over Delaware, and the UNCW loss really didn't affect the RPI. So, having them at 49 versus 42 seems meaningful to me.
I would agree.
Kind of to your point earlier, where we've seen before where the mid-major champion is around 50 and they always seem to get left out. Well, if you're closer to 40, there's some gray area there. And I do think that there's an opportunity for them to get in, depending on the bubble. And with only 2 stolen bids, maybe there's a shot. That doesn't exclude Georgia Tech. I do think that with Charleston, maybe they get in because of conference champion. Certainly that was emphasized with East Carolina, with Arizona, with Santa Barbara, and I think there's a shot there.
Yeah, I agree. For me, I think right now I've got 4 teams for 3 spots. Well, 5 teams for 3 spots.
So let's ladder these.
Yep.
Okay.
I like Charleston and Indiana, Georgia Tech.
I think Coastal's going to get in, dude.
Coastal's in the mix.
Coastal and JMU are not being left out.
Yeah, one of them's getting in.
I mean, and if that's the case, I think Coastal has the better resume.
Indiana and Coastal would be my next 2 here.
Okay, so let me look at this.
I mean, I would have Charleston over both of those. For me, it's a no-brainer on that one.
So I would probably do it this way.
Charleston, Indiana, Coastal, Georgia Tech.
That would probably be my order.
I would have Cal over JMU for sure.
For sure?
For me, yes.
What about over Georgia Tech?
That's a discussion to have.
I would have.
So let's talk about that.
I would have Cincinnati ahead of JMU too.
Really?
Yeah, finished one.
Cincinnati's 18 spots behind in the RPI. They're 62 as a power conference team. I can't see that.
Honestly, don't know how Cincinnati would get in. I mean, they have good conference record, but as we've all kind of talked about, the conferences are unbalanced. Conference record should be less, not more.
I don't even think Cincinnati should be on the sheet right now, to be honest with you. If Louisville's not on, why is Cincinnati on? I don't see that. Xavier would be ahead of them for me.
Yeah. The concern for me, with Indiana is just the RPI. I mean, Big Ten, maybe you get a little leeway, but you didn't win anything.
That's true.
I mean, I'd almost bump them down some.
I mean, I guess really
the only concern is the committee guy, right? So
right.
And
it's the number 4 RPI league.
Yeah.
And they finished third.
Yeah,
they finished third.
Well, that's a positive, no doubt.
And they had a good finish, down the stretch, and a pretty good performance conference tournament. I mean, and we already went over some of the wins that they have. I think they have some good wins. So actually, I feel okay about them, including a head-to-head against Coastal when they're the team coming out of the upper Midwest and going to Myrtle Beach, and they beat them in February.
Mm-hmm.
I think I like Charleston, Indiana, and either Georgia Tech or Cal, but I can see why you would suggest that Coastal's likely to get in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, and
are we good with Charleston and Indiana?
But just keep in mind, this is not what we would do. This is what we think the committee will do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Indiana and Coastal, because of the committee consistency so far, would be in for me.
And again, they both have a case. It's not just because they have a guy in the room. Yeah. They both have a case. It's you could split hairs. If I would rank these teams how I would like them to go, I don't know what the answer would be. I would go round and round. You twist yourself in knots.
Mm-hmm.
Except for me, Charleston's the clear top of the heap.
So Kendall, you have a better grasp on the political landscape than Aaron and I. What do you think?
I mean, politically, I would go Indiana, Coastal, Charleston.
Yeah. Because
it's the same three teams. I
mean, here's the thing too.
Yeah.
Right now we're giving the number 4 RPI conference 2 bids of the postseason.
That's what I'm saying.
Indiana.
I'm saying I think Indiana's in for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
That being one. Number 4 RPI league, finished third, had a good run in the conference tournament, have plenty of good wins. 6-10 Q1 stacks up pretty well against some of these other bubble teams. It's better than Arizona, and they're hosting. I think there's a lot to like about Indiana.
Mm-hmm. But that means that Georgia Tech or Cal or JMU doesn't make it.
Yeah, and I think we can go ahead and
there's not room for everybody. I get that, but
I think we can go ahead and cut JMU, Xavier, Cincinnati. For me, like, it comes down to those other 5 teams for 3 spots.
Yeah,
and for the reason we've outlined, the committee representation, in addition to their cases.
Right.
I do, again, I think Coastal has some pretty decent wins in there. So it feels like to me finishing 7th in the league and not playing particularly great in the last month. I mean, I don't think Coastal should be in. I don't, that's one that I put at the bottom of this 5 if it were my pecking order, but it's not mine. We're doing what the committee is going to do, and it's probably going to be Indiana, Coastal. And
here's the thing about this is all of these teams have warts in their resumes, right?
Yeah. Or they wouldn't be on the bubble. Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Where they wouldn't be on the bubble. So like we can sit there and blame the political landscape of this whole situation, but like, it's not like if you put in Coastal, it's not like, Georgia Tech just got absolutely hosed. Like, it was there was no question they should have been in over this other team. So it's just natural that would help, that situation would help a team. Yeah, and because you're just splitting hairs with all these teams.
Yeah.
And I made the point on Twitter today too. I think the 3 of us discussed it in our call at 2 a.m. Last night. It's wild that Youngstown State basically might single-handedly destroy 3 teams in bubble cases because Louisville, Georgia Tech, and Charleston all played a weekend series against Youngstown. They all swept Youngstown.
And they all plummeted.
And they all took a huge hit because Youngstown went 16-44 with a 284 RPI. And it's just that has a disproportionate impact on where you stand in the non-conference strength schedule and the RPI. And if they replace those games with the 180 team in the RPI, even, Charleston also had some games against Marshall, who's 178. If they had 3 more games against Marshall instead of Youngstown, they'd be in much better shape. But that's not what happened. And I have long pushed for the rule that we should drop your 3 worst RPI wins from your resume and then consider it. I'm going to just push that again right now, but that's not what they're doing.
Yeah. And I think the other part of this is the KPIs in the picture this year. And while that, remains to be seen what impact it will play, I do think there's just that message means that maybe the RPI this year as it has been in the past. Because we've all yelled at, hey, they just sorted by RPI and selected the field, right? And maybe that's not what's going to happen this year, because just the message that sends. And what I hope they do is they add others, whether it's a DSR or Massey or whatever, right? And add 4, 5, 6 of these things. And then you can look at them and you can identify the outliers. One of these things is not like the other. Remember Sesame Street? And then you kick that one out. And then you're able to go, okay, well, this is representative of where this team lands. Because right now the RPI could be the outlier.
Yep.
Right. And that's the problem that we've had for years, that we look at this and go, okay, well, the RPI isn't reflective of strength. The 3 of us can look at it and go, yeah, this is not the way it should be. And I'm hoping that we'll have something that will allow the committee to do that in the future. Yeah. We don't have that yet, but I'm hopeful based on the progress that we made with adding the KPI.
Yeah.
That
there's lots of room to reform the process. And someone sent me, and I didn't know this, someone sent me today a link to the article about the hockey process. And they have a form of the Fitt rule where they have a form of the Fitt rule where they use RPI. They also use a pairwise system, but the RPI, your wins against the really bad RPI teams, they throw them out. They throw them out.
Yeah.
If they can do it, then we can figure out how to do it. That's one reform I really, really want to see more than any other. But also, I agree with you about using multiple systems. And with that in mind, can you pull up KPI and add those to the mix here for these 5 teams we're looking at? And I'd also be curious where Arizona is in the KPI, and I'm curious if that has them considerably higher than RPI, and maybe that was a factor.
Can do that.
Here we go, KPI in the new window,
and it's kind of slow. There we go.
Yeah. By the way, while Mark's pulling it up, thanks for everybody for joining us. We're over 26,000 people on here. And as the banner will tell you, you can put in 24 season at checkout and still get 24% off any D1 Baseball subscription.
So as we look for bubble teams here, here's James Madison at 42, Indiana 49, Cincinnati 51. Did I miss anyone?
Coastal, Charleston.
Coastal was up high. Yeah, they were 19.
Where's Charleston?
Charleston 47.
Okay, and Georgia Tech?
Georgia Tech. We go up or down? 34.
Okay, so that is interesting. I suspect, I think our hunch in Indiana is right. I think we can put them in. Look, ultimately, I think we all think it's Indiana and Coastal are in. So let's just go ahead and keep this thing moving.
Yeah.
I
think the Sun Belt is getting
an extra team, whether it's JMU or Coastal, and for obvious reasons why we pick Coastal.
And beyond that, like we went through it, I just think Coastal is way more quality wins than JMU, and
they definitely have higher end wins,
yep.
And the head-to-head. Let's not forget the head-to-head.
I just think they're more deserving than JMU, and then Charleston. I think Charleston for me is just like, I just don't think you can deny it with the 42 RPI. I think that's the answer.
So you like Charleston more than Cal?
Yeah, and it's close. Cal has that big RPI disadvantage, 22 spots behind him in the RPI. So even with some West Coast leeway, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And Charleston won its league, and for all the other stuff we've talked about, we don't need to rehash their resume. I just think it's a strong resume.
I guess my question would be, would Charleston have 19 wins in the Pac-12 this year?
Pac-12 wasn't great this year. Yeah, I think they might.
It's just the same conversation we had about Florida. There's no way to know. We're at this point in our sport where so many of the mid majors are getting plundered with talent, and they're going elsewhere. What does that do to the regional, process, the selection process? Where so many of the resources are being consolidated upward.
Yeah.
And do that matter? Do you even reflect that, or should you? Right. And I think that's something I'm eager to speak with the committee members to see how they approached it, because this isn't going away. This is only going to get worse as we progress.
Okay. Well, you agreed with me on Charleston over Georgia Tech earlier. So then I guess it's just Charleston versus Cal. Again, and I hate dismissing Georgia Tech. I like their case a lot. I like their case more than Coastal in Florida personally, but that's what we expect will happen. So, and it comes down to this last spot. Again, I just think Charleston's case is just clearly the strongest of these three.
Kendall?
I'm okay with that.
All right. So this is our field, guys. So we'll go through and any quibbles with the seeding?
No,
any threes you want to make twos, or fours you want to make threes? These were the highest RPI of the automatics that I moved to threes: Nichols, Wofford, Evansville, Wilmington, St. John's. VCU would really be the only, potential.
Yeah, so Evansville was 76. VCU was 75. If you're just looking RPI.
Oh, okay. So that's changed since I looked. Okay.
Yeah, it's a toss up between those two. I don't think there's an obvious answer.
Okay. So what we'll do is when we look at the field, we'll have some flexibility on 3 and 4 there based on the fit. Okay. Because
do we want to do the slotting now live on the air? Or do we want to take that offline? What's the feeling here, boys?
I don't mind.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's fine.
So
Kendall enthusiastically wants to go forward. Full transparency here in the Nerdcast.
People might like to see that. So
I think they would like to see how the sausage is made.
I don't know. Somebody might Venmo me some money to send teams certain places. It's political.
Well, hey, if you make some money out of it, you're not going to complain. So what we typically do, folks, is we take this and we just kind of move it over here, so we have a backup in case Nerdmaster General screws it up here. And then what we do is we just kind of we have the ones here, and we figure out where we want to send teams. So there are a few that are kind of fun that we like to do. Like, let's see here. I think we liked South Carolina and North Carolina last night. Any objections there?
Yeah, I mean, you could send them. Yeah, I think anywhere.
They could also go to Clemson, but I think
either North Carolina or NC State. So where is South Carolina on our S curve? They're one of the lower.
You have East Carolina as well.
Yeah.
So
now
there you go.
You've also got 2 ACC teams in North Carolina that will need to be 2 seeds. They can't go obviously to
one of them
Chapel
would go
Hill.
To East Carolina.
Yeah. So it's Wake or Duke.
So do you want to send Duke, who just won the tournament, to the bottom 16 seed?
I think that makes the most sense.
Yeah, I think it does. Then, so other obvious fits here would be.
And we'll just real quickly for people, the committee does not use an S curve once you get past the top 16.
They do not. So it's total fit. But competitive balance is part of the process, as is geography. And then sometimes it's just, hey, who's left over?
Yep.
Okay. So, Kendall, where do you want Texas? Do you want them at Arkansas or do you want them at A&M? So here's the thing. TCU went to Arkansas last year, so I don't want to send them back there. So they could also go to A&M.
So can I give you some juiciness?
Yeah.
Send Texas to UCSB to set up a A&M Texas Super.
We could do that.
I mean, you
the
could.
Only thing is we have some West Coast teams that need a home.
Yeah. I don't think that makes sense. I think that's trying too hard.
So let's go ahead and do those. So Irvine could go to Arizona because they can't.
No, it's not trying too hard. You only have two West Coast 2 seeds,
and then San Diego
with 3 West Coast hosts
could go here, right?
Yep, I think that makes sense.
State, right? So,
but those 2 are local, so it just feels like that's going to happen. San Diego to UCSB and Irvine to Arizona; those are both drive right.
They're going to want a name team in that UCSB regional, though.
That's you could maybe give them a name brand 3.
Is it a name brand 3?
You can send Florida over there.
Florida to Santa Barbara.
You could. Why not?
But I mean, is that going to really matter though? I mean, you go all the way across the country. If you're doing it for fans, that's not going to work.
No.
For gate.
For competitive balance, I guess.
Yeah.
But I mean, San Diego should have been in the host discussion. Like, I think it's actually a strong 2 seed. Take away the name. Who cares about the name brand recognition? They had a great year.
Well, I'm talking about something that people are actually going to watch the regional.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Florida would fit that bill.
That's an option. We'll come back to that.
Well, let's get the 2s done. So could go DBU to. It's really either Oklahoma or Oklahoma State would work.
Right. DBU one of the stronger 2 seeds, I'd say. So yeah, let's send them to the lower seeded of those 2. So Oklahoma State makes sense. I agree.
And then La Tech could go to either Arkansas or A&M. We'll start there and see where it lands.
All right.
Same thing with Louisiana. You could go either one, really.
So,
but Texas needs to go to one of these, honestly. So
Texas is also winds up being one of the weaker 2 seeds, correct? That's fair to say.
I mean, I really like this matchup. I know there'll be conference mates next year, and it'll never happen again. But I think that would be a lot of fun for everyone involved.
I don't think that the teams themselves want it, but
no. But
wouldn't
I don't
be
care
fun
what
for
they
them,
want, right? I mean, it's right.
Kendall, I mean, this is your neck of the woods. What do you got on this?
What do you think? You'd rather Texas go to Arkansas or A&M?
I mean, I think if they're going to stay close, they'd go to A&M.
Okay.
But I actually think it's juicier to have an ESPN Super Regional with A&M in Texas.
But Texas got to win it though.
Right. Yeah. No, that's.
Yeah.
And so is A&M. I mean, they're not,
nobody's right.
guaranteed anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my thing is like, I would have Texas ahead of I don't know if I would have them ahead of Louisiana in my pecking order.
I wouldn't.
It would be close.
Okay. So the only place you could send Southern Miss that's not a flight is Tallahassee.
Texas, by the way, 47 in the RPI. That's actually pretty low for a 2 seed. Very low. By far the lowest RPI of any of the 2 seeds.
Yeah. Yeah, and I looked. I really didn't see a 3 I could bump up. Right. We'll see what the committee does, but
I mean, they've been better than their RPI, for the whole second half. I mean, it feels like that's one where the RPI undervalued them. So that's fine.
Okay. So you got a whole bunch of SEC teams here, and you can't send these 3 to them. So we need to fill those out somewhere else.
Mississippi State, obviously one of the better 2 seeds. Makes sense to either send them to Raleigh or Corvallis, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Raleigh kind of feels like a fit.
Yeah. And maybe Indiana State to Corvallis.
Or Wake Forest. Indiana State. Yeah. Indiana State probably makes sense. Yeah, Wake to Georgia. I like that. It's drivable.
And then Oklahoma, either LSU or Nebraska. I mean, I think either one works.
Nebraska's a drive. Baton Rouge, I assume, is not.
Is it?
Isn't it?
That's a long freaking way.
I'll Google that while you're messing around here.
We can start there. And then, well, I mean, that would leave LSU for Clemson because the other 2 are SEC.
Oh,
and then you got Vandy. So this is not working.
Listen, I've made the drive from Lincoln.
We need to back up.
Yeah. Okay.
We need to back up somewhere.
It's more than 400 miles, so that's not drivable. I stand corrected.
All right, so let's move them back out. One of these SEC teams needs to go to Oklahoma.
Yeah, that's fair.
LSU or Vandy. Let's do LSU.
I like.
And maybe Vandy to Clemson.
Boy, we've done that. We've been down that road too many times.
Okay. So LSU to Clemson and Vandy to Oklahoma?
Yeah. Boy, that seems harsh for Clemson, though, doesn't it?
It does. They had Tennessee last year, who was one of the best 2 seeds. It's kind of matches what happened last year, actually. Because Tennessee was playing really well.
I mean, I don't know that would Clemson rather have Vandy yet again, or I mean, that's already happened twice in recent history, or would they rather have LSU, who's hot? Right. Yeah, they don't get to choose. Okay. Louisiana goes to Tennessee. Nebraska goes to Kentucky.
Or vice versa.
I mean, Louisiana. Yeah. Who's your bottom 2 seed? I think it's probably.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a true S curve, but probably La Tech or Texas.
I think I'm okay with. Yeah, I mean, Louisiana also is. Oh, bless you again. Louisiana is 38 in the RPI. I think that's fine. I think that's fine right there.
Okay. So then we look at the threes, and you do have some locals. Like you could put UCF here. You could put
Yeah. So if you're just listening to the podcast,
put UCF at Florida in Tallahassee.
if you're just listening to the podcast, I don't know why. You should be watching live. I
Yeah,
can't imagine this has much of a
what's
shelf
more
life.
exciting than watching a guy work a spreadsheet?
Yeah.
So
Nonetheless.
Wilmington could go to. I kind of like that. Send them to Chapel
Yeah.
Hill.
Yeah, that's another one that feels like is pretty frequent, but it just makes sense. North Carolina.
Nichols to College Station. Match up with Texas.
You know what? Here's another thought. You could also send Wilmington to NC State. Would be something to consider. I mean, I don't know where they fit on the S curve, but
yeah, it's. I mean, these threes are not.
Yeah.
Too different. So
you
got Coastal and Charleston. So we're going to send Coastal to Chapel Hill and Charleston to Clemson. How about that?
I think that is satisfactory.
Okay, so Wofford is still there. Let's send them to Kingston.
Yeah.
I mean,
if you wanted to get, and I'm not suggesting we do this, but if you wanted to get nuts, if you had North Carolina, South Carolina, and Charleston all in the same regional, it's just like the Chad Holbrook Invitational.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, I mean, if we could certainly do the whole Clemson, South Carolina, Charleston.
I'm not advocating for that, but I'm just saying, I like how you've got it there.
Okay. So I just put Evansville in the Kentucky regional.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, and maybe Indiana in the Tennessee regional, Knoxville.
I think that makes sense too. Which would be a pretty interesting regional with Louisiana and Indiana. So
Virginia, let's see. No VCU, there are 4. No James Madison, they didn't make it. So there's not an obvious pick there. There's no West Coast team other than Oregon, and they could go here.
Oregon or UConn could come down.
Yeah. They could go there.
I'd rather split up that's a flight anyway, so I'd rather split up those West Coast teams, not stack them all in one spot. I think it would make more sense to send like an Illinois maybe to out west.
Like that. Okay. Kansas State going to Arkansas kind of makes sense.
Okay. Yep. Agree with that.
2 SEC that need homes. One's going to go to
Stillwater
West, and then one can go to Stillwater. Let's do that. Alabama just went to Stillwater. Florida is going to go to either Tucson or Corvallis, or Virginia for that matter.
You could also send Florida to Santa Barbara, actually, just to move Illinois to one of the other West Coast spots, maybe to Tucson, Arizona, Irvine, Illinois.
Florida, and there's Kendall's brand.
Yeah.
Okay. And then,
I mean, unless you wanted to send TCU as a 3 to Tucson,
yeah, let's do this.
So
Illinois
to Athens,
Georgia, yeah, TCU to Tucson, and then you have the 2 Big East teams left.
Yep.
And we will go Connecticut.
UConn, yeah, like that.
And then St. John's will go to Corvallis, and then we're playing with 4s.
Yep.
So this one makes sense here.
If for some reason you're listening, that's UConn to Charlottesville with West Virginia.
So, and then Northern Kentucky to Kentucky. Let's go Oral Roberts to Arkansas. High Point. That's one of the better 4s, I would think. Let's send them to East Carolina.
I like that.
VCU, let's send them to Virginia.
I still like the idea of my all-purple regional with East Carolina, LSU, East Carolina, LSU, High Point, and your 3 seed would be Evansville. I think that would be pretty sick.
Yeah. Be a lot of purple.
It would be awesome.
Let Prince play the national anthem. See, Grambling, let's send them to A&M. Stetson, we can send them to Tallahassee. SEMO, there's probably go to Oklahoma, maybe.
I think that would make sense. With Vanderbilt and Oregon.
Yeah, nobody else has got a local. So Tulane will send to Stillwater.
Grand Canyon to Tucson kind of seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah. Although they played like 3 times, sure. Army. Let's see. Army can take a flight to Corvallis. And what do we got left here? Who's your worst? Who's your lowest team that should go to the Tennessee? Should that be Long Island?
Let's take a look here at the lowest RPI team that's in the field is where are you? I thought I had that handy. Here we go. Well, obviously Oral Roberts. Oral Roberts is
the worst.
Listen, 2023 Division I Men's College World Series participant Oral Roberts is in fact the worst RPI team in the field 64 with a 269.
I'm glad you got to do that. It made you feel good, didn't it?
Hey, congratulations. You're going back to the big dance. Texas Southern is next.
Grambling.
Grambling is next. And then we've got, what did I say? Texas Southern. They're not in the field. Sorry. Getting late. Then what do we got? Long Island, 192.
Yeah, let's do that. So Penn, who's kind of scary, them down here.
They're the next RPI team, but I agree. I think they're a little scary given their history.
Yeah. And then it really doesn't matter from here, does it?
So Niagara is actually, as we mentioned, is actually pretty good. 100, like a 103 RPI. Maybe send them to Athens.
To Georgia.
Yeah. Western Michigan 136, and your Bryant Bulldogs are 114. So put them. I would go Western Michigan to North Carolina and Bryant to Clemson.
Okay. So anything you want to tweak? So usually when I do this, I look at it and then I go, well, this doesn't really fit. So what can we look at to improve it? So the ones that don't fit, certainly that one doesn't fit. All right. That one really doesn't fit. And Oregon to Oklahoma doesn't fit. Vanderbilt really doesn't fit. So let's just see if there's any way we can improve this. Connecticut to here doesn't fit.
So why do you think those don't fit?
Just from geography, and it's kind of a
okay.
Some of these you just look at them and you go, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
And some of them, they may go right back where they are, but it's just a chance to kind of tweak it a little bit.
Right. I could see mixing it up and sending Vanderbilt to Chapel Hill instead of South Carolina, just because it feels like Vanderbilt feels like one of the lower 2 seeds to me. I don't know. It's fine. It's fine how it is.
Yeah. Is there anywhere else on the 2 line that Vandy could go? Not here. No, I don't really want to do that. No, I think they're going to end up back where they were.
Back in Norman, yeah.
Yep. And then for these 2, you want to tweak those at all? Is there anywhere Nebraska fits better that doesn't disrupt? Probably not.
Probably not.
Or Louisiana, either one. They fit at A&M, but they don't fit better than Texas. So we'll just leave it the way we are.
Yeah, I mean,
So anything with
Texas is the lowest RPI of the 2 seeds. So I mean, if you wanted to swap them with one of those others, you could. But then
you
you
want
just
to
have
send them to have an orange fist and send them to Tennessee.
I mean, I don't know if you're Tennessee, who I would probably leave it how it was.
Yeah, it's a lot juicier the other way.
And it just kind of just feels more intuitive.
Yeah. Okay. And then 3 seeds. I mean, Oregon's not going to have a natural fit.
Right.
So it's just from a competitive balance standpoint, what do you want to do? So we had them. Didn't they go to Nashville last year?
Who's that?
They have gone to Nashville.
Yeah, they have.
I can't remember. It blurs together.
I mean, it's not that really matters, but it's just trying to give some variety. I mean, we could certainly swap those if we wanted. It's just a longer flight.
Right. Yeah, either way, both teams are flying. So it's not, I think that's fine. Swap them. Oregon goes to Charlottesville. Oklahoma gets UConn. So I think I'm comfortable with this, guys. And obviously, if we were actually the committee, we would take more time.
Yeah. Right.
We would not be quite as laissez-faire with this.
Right.
I hope the committee is taking longer than we are to slot these teams.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that. But should we run through them real quick?
We can.
If you're listening at home or watching, Knoxville. Go ahead, Mark. Why don't you take the lead?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I'll take the first 8, and then you take over. So Tennessee is the 1 seed in Knoxville with Louisiana, Indiana, Long Island, and number 2 is Kentucky with Nebraska, Evansville, Northern Kentucky. Number 3 seed or 3 overall is North Carolina. Then they have South Carolina Coastal and Western Michigan. 4 is Texas A&M with a juicy matchup with Texas, along with Nichols, which will be a difficult first-round game because they have Jacob Myers. And Grambling as 4 seed. So then 5th overall, Arkansas, Louisiana Tech, Kansas State, Oral Roberts. Then 6 would be Clemson with a tough matchup from LSU, along with Charleston and Bryant. 7 would be Florida State, hosting Southern Miss, UCF, and Stetson. A lot of local teams there. So and then 8, you'd have Oklahoma with Vanderbilt, Connecticut, and SEMO.
Yeah, all those feel pretty balanced to me. I don't see nothing out here is jumping out like a regional of death or just a cakewalk. Either way, I feel like they all feel pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
We'll take it from there. Athens, Georgia's the 9 national seed. You've got Wake Forest. I mean, obviously that's a dangerous 2 seed, but
scary.
Kind of. Yeah, I mean, it's then hey, number what they finished in the RPI, guys? Number 9. Number 9 RPI team.
Wow.
So I mean, I almost but there's not but a couple of teams behind them that are hosting are ACC teams. So you can't send them there. The only drivable place that makes sense for them, I think, is Georgia, because Duke would be ahead of them in the pecking order. So it makes sense to send Duke to ECU. So that's why we've got Wake at Georgia. Illinois is your 3 seed there, and Niagara comes down as your 4. Stillwater, you've got Oklahoma State with Dallas Baptist, Alabama, Tulane. I think I'm comfortable with that. Feels pretty good. Raleigh, we've got NC State as your host. Mississippi State coming in as a dangerous 2 seed, obviously. Wilmington, quality 3, and then Penn, regional finalist last year, is your 4. Good regional there. Charlottesville, Virginia. West Virginia is your 2. That one feels written in the stars. Oregon is your 3, and VCU is your 4. I feel like VCU is a pretty safe bet there. Oregon, who knows where they're going to wind up. They can wind up in a lot of places. Yep. Santa Barbara, UCSB, San Diego, Florida, and Fresno State. Interesting one there. 3 West teams and the Gators. Then you got Tucson. You've got Arizona, UC Irvine, TCU, and Grand Canyon. I know people out West are probably going to throw their arms up and say, why are you always clustering us together? We're going to knock each other out. That's how it works, guys. Geography's always been a part of it. And like this makes it so that a regional can be attended by more fans of the local team. It makes it easier to travel. You know, everyone has to beat the teams in their region, generally speaking. That's just how it works.
Right.
I'm tired of hearing the whining about that. Onward, Oregon State, 15 national seed, has Indiana State, St. John's, and Army. And then 16 seed, East Carolina has Duke, Wofford, and High Point. I like all of these. I think we crushed it. Considering we spent 20 minutes doing it and not hours and hours, I think we crushed it.
Quick question, guys. Okay, so of these, what would you consider the strongest and what would you consider the weakest? I mean, I don't. Then we did a good job.
I think we did a great job. I don't see anything that's
yeah.
Like I'll see a team
We're
here
so
that's
good.
Well, you look at it and say, oh wow, that's a tough 2 seed, but you kind of balance it out, or I mean, it just I think they feel pretty balanced to me. Crushed it.
Okay. Sounds good, guys. So this was a lot of fun. I mean, this is our last NerdCast. We'll have a reaction to the bracket tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, thanks so much for making this joining us and while we go through this and hash it out and try to find out, try to be like the committee and try to understand what we like, what we don't like, what the field should be. We've done this all year and we'll continue to do it next year. But any final thoughts, guys, before we dismiss for tomorrow?
No, just looking forward to it. By the way, we topped out at like 33,500 people. So do us a favor on YouTube. Click the subscribe button on YouTube. Obviously, it's free. But anyway, we appreciate you guys joining us, especially just to hear us ramble about teams. It means a lot to us.
If you're still here at the 1 hour 46 mark, then you're a true sicko.
Yeah, if you're one of the 33,000 people,
love the sport as much as we
do.
do.
Really like college baseball, so we appreciate that.
I salute you guys. Thanks for everybody for watching. I'm fascinated to see the just the way they handle some of this. It felt like Mike Rooney in our group chat said it well. It felt like they did not really tip their hand tonight with the hosts. Like it didn't tip their hand about how they're going to go about these things. It doesn't feel like there's an overarching philosophy. The Arizona thing threw us all for a little bit of a loop, and we kind of thought it was a pleasant surprise. The ECU thing surprised us as well. And, it was a little bit
not as pleasant,
but still not egregious. It's not egregious by
any
means. Again, I'll say one more time. We had them hosting every projection this year until this morning.
So the RPI plummeted, right?
So the RPI plummeted and they're not, they haven't been as healthy. So all those things said, don't know what to expect tomorrow. It feels like there's a lot of teams that have very wildly different, but still fascinating, compelling cases. How do you compare, a mid-major conference champion like a Charleston versus, a Cal who's 22 spots lower in the RPI, but did well in their league and has some nice wins, and versus, an Indiana versus a Coastal. I mean, there's like all these teams have such dramatically different resumes, and you can spin it however you want. And I'm just really fascinated to see how the committee spins it. And will they do something that just makes my head explode? I hope not, because I'd like to have a nice, peaceful Monday.
Yeah. Well, we don't want your head to explode, Aaron. So thanks again, everybody, and stay tuned for tomorrow's reaction show as there's more fun stuff to come. So see you tomorrow.